Hello, YouTubers, people of the world, America, this republic, especially republics, and especially exceptions. There are proofs that pantheism was functional by the republic that also with the ism part worked with the other people with exceptions that weren't with the republic, but whether everyone was being observant of what is generated in completely different species bodies and the individual human species body of individual bodies with all group differences being and having been in demonstration of what's generating them. More and more, a breaching method replaced the names of the people of the sciences, their ability to afford to be, or anyone else, the exception of their rules or anyone else. But this is the campuses, we all come through campuses, even if we are homeschooled. Those exceptions and exception nature have a multi-front against each age of fact-shipping nature. Inside the nature of negotiations, no. Of industries, no. Of world trade, no. Noting World Trade Center associated with world trade and with differences. Right through world wars. The differences in my overt criminal enterprise, private ones, terrorists, and guilt of countries A through Z where they could be shown guilty. That's because there are locations, areas, and states that have had to counter that which is hyper unnatural, that which is hyper foreign, that which only allows to be blamed other things, others, ourselves, like things like criminal foreign influences, leaving out its roles with it, leaving out its roles with differences. Where people labeled black and white together did not want roles with that, which had been entrenched, forced roles with it before America's founders were born. And no one had free speech. Then again, James Madison has our founders plural. They refer to themselves plural as him singular. And then they went and got George Washington to help them and to use that plan to counter, extort, and force the rest of the founders too, which was enabled too because they were crazy, fact-shipping nature, torture, extortion, and slavery laws against every single person. Per a method that had internationally monitored conversations, had people killing each other. Where the nature of peace, besides that, was this collusion too, keeping screened the identity of relationship to ourselves of the breaching method, and keeping the breaching method itself from our discernment, even though is there to discern. Others that, they have either experts using our founders' words, leaving out what they declassified about it, leaving out all the ways they didn't have free speech. They had to pretend to otherwise be sensed. Otherwise, they have someone just speaking about our founders, collusions with that. Then the nature of the debate, you know more than this person. And even if they know more, this came first. This is the most principal thing. The teachers get things wrong. That in other words. And when they speak on poverty, it's a certain type of victim/hyper-victim reaction. In other words, they leave out, how many ways the industries have had the differences of too. All sides of criminal and civil cases in the courts' names. And the intelligence tied to them, they never had their identity, their possession of their identity legitimate. Next to all locations are things manifest that even themselves they miss, but they hear it first and understand first because we're the people. Our collusion /us against ourselves is recorded. Is where and how you change our words regarding World Trade Center predicate acts. WFSB, Connecticut's Channel 3 News, attached me to fake conversations with myself, with my family, and with others about the World Trade Center attack and about relative criminal and civil cases, where they had and have increasingly wrote collusions slash S, plural collusions, with various natures of federal criminals before they were caught, and various natures of people at and next to body dumping spots, and people reportedly as murders and convicted murderers who have collusion slash S with Connecticut news locations and the names next to them. Increasingly, there are people at the judicial branch offices of Connecticut and the corrections offices, and next to them and other natures of conjunctions to them, where the Trinity is being exploited. I forgot these numbers. It is more probable, for example, that to theorize, let alone to convict, that ancient pantheism was about seeing through isms, including its own, while appreciating exceptions and exception nature, not a part of the republic, not the republic that you've only heard described, because the nature of entertained names of the people, the sciences, and names of the sciences use slash the syntax can't defend itself and afford to be, let alone to protract. Short words with convictions and or with nature and or per the difference of it, allow proper to speak for what revealed the ancient republic for which we stand, and its campuses system, and its pantheism that is inseparable, because there is that inseparable, hyper-invisible but still discernible identity of value progression. Not our species body, not the other species bodies, but all things anyway. It is showing us we are distinct, non-distinct, and simultaneous, per this further slash hyper simultaneous. It shows us an extent of its individual body as a distinct identity of hyper invisible but still discernible, conjunctive to all parts of invisible but still discernible, of speech, of English grammar, for example. This is observable. I've gone over this in my videos. This is also the identity appreciating as the identity the sciences share. So it is as the identity of the law, why and how it is appreciating the word, the phrase, predicate, act, relative to how English is valuing the predicate, relative to this discernment of the invisible slash hyper invisible, because the identity that is all things at once, that is that identity which is using the volume sciences to show us itself. That's just one of the ways. See, but we have been systems tactile people with theories and in defenses of them and why of the validity of their existence. The nature forces that to be styles, natures, relying upon readings of American history, other countries' readings of their histories that have been led by hyper-criminally foreign influences that juxtapose criminal foreign influences. And the branches never had independence, no matter what they did in their families for their country or for other people. Where and how it counts, where and how we are fact-sheet nature, and ways generated from that. We have been generating as systems tactical ulterior from its own, which is also showing us the difference between a special difference with Earth and our quality of diffusion. We could ignore its system, but it forces it from here, our special difference. So we become negative value nature, progression, identity of relativity slash hyper-relativity. As itself, as all cells have relativity to positive and negative simultaneously. As identity. And every identity has a semi-nature relationship to itself, that hyper-additional, which shows us we are value slash value nature system. There is poverty because how the suburbs were designed tactically to nature unsafe through the only means to have safety or for help if things happen. That was his per a breaching method still, at suits and ties, countries, counters, and exceptions. That whole array and the differences was used to hide behind and through. Ugh. Nature doesn't stop showing us that there are the people of the uses of the isms, capitalism, communism, and socialism are collusion /S, where and how it counts black pupils. I'll see the whites of eyes, I'll fail. You guys have self-valued roles with being and having been used remotely, criminally foreign /hyper-criminally foreign. People with the uses of our founders' words, leaving out what was they declassified about that. But leaving out that breaching method, leaving out and replacing it right from the communications of our founders, how they did not have free speech, how everyone had to pretend other, because they were being questioned by the breaching method that measured and maintained an extent of collusion /S with fact-cheating nature, therefore physically too, against everyone, against others and themselves. Otherwise, that body was sensed and it was adapted to, including if that body was a majority of people, including if that body was everyone. Of colonies, now states, of countries, including the countries that sickly distinctly, northern colonies and southern colonies, had slavery entrenched. And still have it entrenched, for example, forcing other things other themselves blamed, right where and how our founders communicated there was a breaching method. It was entrenched, forced everyone to roll with that, and they wanted nothing to do with it, but they didn't have free speech. They had to use James Madison's plan and force the other founders and presidents to be. They had to counter extort. You guys have in other words. So in other words, we haven't gotten the Constitution unabridged. We haven't liberated free speech yet. Everyone's just faking and changing. Everyone is the news media and their interbranch and intelligence sources are recording, confessing, demonstrating, confirming they have roles with the Intelligence Act next to Connecticut news locations and exceptions. People with the government access television, they're on YouTube too. The news people. They've been using the right to lie, but they don't have the right to lie. They have roles with acting professors. Forensics locations have roles with digital crime acts and methods, just changing and faking digital evidences. They have the people as ravenous beasts using what other people say and think, have them as simultaneously others insidious positives. Even proofs that there are natures of charities involved with criminal porn influence /hypercriminal porn influence, just like with black people's whites of eyes. Began and stays about increasingly. How? There was a fact-cheating nature possession. There was an identity theft, fraud, slander method, only 3 ways manifest. Because 3 ways manifest too was a torture, extortion, a physical slavery method. And roles, again, to an extent. Otherwise, that body was sensed and it was adapted to. We have been systems tactical terror from that one that is also positive onto itself and appreciating a special difference. It's showing us Earth's a special difference, but the nature of the bay, inside the nature of the bay, contains quality aspects of nature that criminally foreign influence, tactical delusions raw. Relative to styles, needs, people, when you type in comments, but they're not honest when they say, "Oh, I don't understand all the gobbledygook or word salad." Or you could take English. They're changing. They're fishing into branch because they're collusions with civil and criminal cases, and with the state judicial branch offices. There are proofs not just of Connecticut and of conjunctions to it, how it manifests, and of the corrections offices. Increasingly, those names and conjunctions to it, and the difference of that was exploited where and how from off campuses They're locking also names next to campuses involved with identity theft, fraud, slanders, and federal evidence is crime and predicate acts with facts methods. I'm not even a lawyer. This is about predicate acts with facts method / methods and worse, while using remotely too, and that's generating worse. And so the worst is keeping everyone blaming the generating, even the cells, even the guilty, because it has all positives and negatives. Self-dependent as fact, treating nature relativity. To where and how you guys debate principles. This is principle. We have black pupils, whites of eyes. There are fish with eyes that look like humanity's eyes. They are distinctly from humanity's eyes. But there are birds also with eyes. There are other species with eyes. It's showing us distinctly. But there's a species body of individual bodies with all group differences being generated by that which uses, which shows us too it is functional how there is a distinct identity of hyper-invisible but still discernible. Hyperconjunction to all parts of speech, such as English grammar, revealed to be taught before the sciences became criminally foreign influenced, tactically delusions wrought from off them, forced collusion /s, hyper additionally at them, to hide behind and through. The difference with that too. Ugh. Again, there are means that everyone could discern, and no one could get away with debating regarding or forget it. In other words, Allah's name, just using science in the Trinity. There are proofs that these were scientific tools, that pantheism was about the identity of hyper-invisible but still discernible, which comes also with parts of its body manifest with that relative where we are discerning it from inside itself. There's only an extent of the identity of all things at the same time. Well, not then, but anyway. Which is how it is functional, well, how we can discern it. Again, it is its identity of value / variable progression and how it is functional to us, being itself, being its way positive onto itself and appreciating its special difference here, or it is forced from here. It demonstrates that. Not as death or extinction, but relative to it. Because we only have here now to appreciate this special difference. That is hyper-native pure. It's showing us the value of the difference between president and chief, which comes also with another difference of hyper-invisible but still discernible. That the difference between president and chief, those two subjects are the subjects of the invisible but still discernible. Again, the parts of speech of the invisible but still discernible. Why and how we need more than one word for a verb comes also with our ability to discern to an extent the body of that identity of forever nature, that identity of value / value progression that is generating these things, is projecting to us as itself, is showing we are showing the species volume science is not to show us there's a God with two eyes. It shows us exceptions too, or apparent exceptions. It's showing us it is functional, how it is hyper. There is a distinct identity of hyper invisible but still discernible. There is no excuse for people not to realize or pretend not to be able to fathom. We're in how, like, for example, when people ask questions at locations, That's also kind of what is whatever the breaching method makes people do. Has the the guilt with the opposite done too. Because this is recorded. There's methods of keeping names on all sides of criminal and civil cases. Self-value rules of the same sequence shifts and predicate acts from data stacking, data illusion stacking into databases as collusion stacking. Also with the collusion that was hyper, like for example, northern colonies and southern colonies were distinctly owned by distinct companies in other countries, and their definition of ownership was tactical, utilitarian natures. It has all things distinctly, though. See, we have come through schools sickly distinctly for the best ones to the worst one. The difference of that is used also by this breaching that uses quality aspects of fact treatment nature. For again, example two, using self-value roles with uses of our founders' communications replaced. The scientific value of the human fact treatment nature breaching method replaced right from the founders' communications to us. Demonstrably, this is why and how. Religious messengers had to leave their messages partially in cipher, partially knowing that names at all locations / locations plural, all groupings of locations. It knew they would still be locations, areas, and states being used remotely, hypercriminally foreign influence, and haven't been used that way. Which is also roles, blaming other things, others themselves, nature's demonstrations of it. Things blamed on like criminal foreign influences. That the breaching method started counters to itself internationally to make other things, others themselves, blame for things that it caused and keeps. That's why and how they have the audacity to speak for defense or security. At countries A through Z, shoots attacks counters, and like nuclear weapons or peaceful nuclear energy. They can't even get the suburbs right. They can't even afford a quality nature of a factory nature project properly with that. With our founders, let alone nature too. Other is being has been communicated, and nature has communicated for us of all voices of that. Pretend not to be able to perceive how places with databases and then further as campuses, places where the names of the people of sciences will be manifest, how they could be used, roles with predicate acts with facts. And then further from people with the people from off those locations. Increasingly, it is from off a location /S, where there are increasingly collusion /S at all locations, right where no one wants it to. No one wants to have collusions, changing and faking what people say about Black people's rights of eyes, World Trade Center predicate acts, planting evidences, self-valuing roles. Oh, I didn't know. That's what that person said. That's the one with the title. Regardless of what you're not supposed to. You're supposed to put. You're supposed to. There's obligations by the law. If you're not going to do something, get them on paper, one name and sequence. Weatherfield police have been switching names, forging names with New Britain Superior Court, Connecticut's District Court, Harper Courts. They have collusions from before the World Trade Center attack, where they are personally involved with West Hartford locations, people on off the Wethersfield judicial branch offices and corrections offices before the World Trade Center attack. Also have collusion /S, all kinds of people directly and indirectly with names at and next to that spot, interstates, internationally, and further hyper internationally, haven't been used remotely, syntax nature. Also attached to faked and changed communications and sensibilities and influenced to roles that way. Where in the background they have fake telephone conversations, faked me with conversations at the police station itself when I was a kid, and then as an adult. Wethersfield police have roles with a bunch of people at the houses and businesses next to Hartford Hospital. Ones with the name Mayano for themselves, and ones with the name Demorals Market, and the other place, Ilo's Kitchen. They have roles with like that former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, and co-defendants of his and their family members. And their roles of people who have roles of home break-ins on my street that are involved with overt criminal enterprise, private ones, state police, families, interstates, and international police forms, foreign and domestic military, other natures of intelligence, on off the state corrections offices and at Hartford/Wethersfield, and the Wethersfield State Judicial Branch offices too, names next to it, have collusion/S with predicate acts with facts at campuses, but also with other countries, and with overt criminal enterprises and with private ones at the same time, being and having been used also to hide other, but that's all recorded. But we shouldn't have to stack all these things to get the interbranch. I want a response to the principal child abuser's confession still. There are more kids that are sickly, distinctly hurting too, while they help them too. The difference of that, because that's also being used and haven't been used at other locations. They've been putting fake things in databases, including at interbranch locations. At countries A through Z, right through world wars, it was only concentrated where psychiatry, tied to healthcare locations too. They're charging healthcare. And these are people at prisons too, and elderly homes, and veterans homes where people are locked in, where they shouldn't be. And even where they should be. These are people who had collusion/S with those crime scenes and with those killers and people next to the body dummy spots before they were even caught. They were collusion/S also with worse natures and methods of predicate acts with facts. Which is, again, we have black people's rights of eyes, and I'm not even a lawyer. We're not to be lawyers. This is about predicate acts with facts, changing and faking, and denying there are extended revelations, things being demonstrated to us projected to us by the identity of value progression that has distinct bodies, species bodies, also non-distinctly with eyes, with quality aspects in nature, distinct, non-distinct, simultaneous / per its further hyper-simultaneous, its further distinct identity of hyper-simultaneous nature, a further distinct identity of hyper-invisible but still discernible. So pantheism was led by this, which is functional. If there's the slightest finite detail left out, like for example, grouped details and simultaneous ones at the same time, which we could observe, just not leaving out the hyper-evidential. Knowing, too, the revelations that come. We have black people's right to survive. This is inseparable from how a breaching method reassigned natural communications with that which is only natural as criminal insidiousness. But all had roles pretending otherwise that body was sensed. And it's not just justice towards the types of attacks on different differences or criminal insidiousness nature helping of differences. It's the one using the difference. It's the collusion/S at all locations/S everywhere the human species body is that no one wanted. But there are exceptions made. Like it's clear, that's one of the things that's clear as day. It's the only reason why when someone says that, so like uses the hyper-evidential, like wow, we have black people's rights to life is inseparable from the subject of slavery. If someone denies it, it is. They have inherent to, active to, and progressive to their logic and to their nature of logic. The demonstrations of the same thing. How this has never surfaced is relative also to hyperevidential, where interbranch switch names and sequences. They value and have value. The fact, dishonestly, where they pretended to value jobs, and value in nature. Like it has been tactical theory that they have pretended. They have stayed collusion /S, criminally portable / hypercriminally portable through that, changing and faking details, forcing equality of fact, cheaping nature. This breach method, the names of the people, sciences individually grouped together. They have guilt, where there are certain type of victim / hyper victim need to respond to something hyper unnatural. Someone makes the right response, they need to keep their unnatural reactions to it, pretended natural. For example, and they leak right there. Online, people say, oh, they change the fake what they're saying when they make simple statements that people can understand. They're fishing for the words. And they're leaving out, they're also leaking self-value roles with whiting forensics as digital crime acts and methods with child abusers, leaders of kids, first forced by people involved with them, roles with it, and further then and now. At the same time, untimely deaths and murders intercities have connected roles with the same names of the state judicial branch and corrections offices and the campuses involved, including prison campuses and fire and medical, at the same time with family members that are connected. And they have roles with their patients and criminals and with the body dumping spots, like of a serial killer. Even if the guy was not mystical, had his intelligence, he was there. Whatever it is, that guy too, and medical people associated with him, involve all kinds of methods of and natures of organized crimes at the same time, and with differences, and with words like delusions. They're tactically delusions raw. The experts on the name of the sciences, but not alone. The nature of debate about this contains quite aspects of nature we have to pay attention to. People speaking about principles, leaving out these which are true always, is distinct. Using passions and emotions to force this used as evidence and appreciated as evidence proper. Not black or white, but black pupils, whites of eyes, in those colors as taught to us by itself. Tactical terror. We have been systems. We could be that. Just forces a special difference from here. Earth's concentrated difference with the relativity of the rest of space / existence. It is a temporary / lasting, now no longer further hyperpositive onto and as itself as all things. It's like you want all parts of your body to stay hyperpositive onto yourself, and you want your species body to stay hyperpositive onto its body too. But this breaching method made and keeps exceptions for you. Everyone would be instantly lifted if you guys would not, or at least if you disagree, if you would be honest about it, your mind would change, because nature itself is showing that the suburbs were / are tactically denatured by a criminally foreign influence, criminally foreign influence / hyper-criminally foreign influence, human fact cheating nature breaching method that replaced right from the communications of the founders of this country, other countries' founders too. This breaching method made countries only capable of blaming what nature itself shows us. For example, there were hyper criminal foreign influences, distinctly but non-distinctly northern colonies and southern colonies, and northern states and southern states. And it is manifest when people speak about the Civil War. You guys are replacing what James Madison dictated with our founders behind him and his plan about what the Civil War was about. It's about getting the Constitution unabridged. You guys are hiding its abridgments when you guys pretend not to realize when you speak of economies that and how there's still a torture, extortion, fact, human nature, slavery method that roles with the suburbs, let alone the cities. We can't grow food. We're reliant upon this breaching method system, and with our differences, like the differences right there with the ground. Then they have the suburban/urban, and they measure. You guys can't appreciate the science of the Trinity comes with the individual body of the hypersimultaneous. With those three parts of time. That part of the future we know now, but even if they never get here, the seasons again, we know their value here now is only increasing. The seasons, they share an identity. Where and how they appear not to comes with constant demonstrations of itself and all things being hyper-additional nature, even art. Prepare each other. Vaccines. We must free our hearts, but control our mind. This is what has been revealed. That's what I thought we were supposed to do. We're supposed to understand. Well, if I'm going to bring in comedy, you guys can't afford the names of the people the science is unbridged. Or anyone. That means anyone. Thank you. So, thank you.